Welcome to another episode, everyone. John Gotti, the legendary mafia boss. Well, he got beat down in prison by a black man. And the reason that he got beat down may surprise some of you. You may think that it was this or that it was that, but actually it was a setup, come to find out, by the Aryan Brotherhood. They set John Gotti up to be beat down. From my understanding, the reasoning is because John Gotti was paying rent, paying for protection to the Aryan Brotherhood. Protection there in prison. Yes, the legendary mob boss. But then he decided that he was going to stop paying this fee, stop paying this tab. He wasn't going to pay the Aryan Brotherhood any further, anymore. That, I suppose, he could protect himself. So the Aryan Brotherhood set it up and had an individual, a black man, attack John Gotti to show him that he indeed needed their protection. The message being, had you still been protected by us, no black man would have ever attacked you, certainly not attacked you and gotten away with it. And they wanted him to continue to pay. But they end up putting a hit out on a black man that attacked him and all this, it gets crazy. But let's get into it. John Gotti, the legendary boss, beat down, playing around with the brothers.
Remember this photo? It's John Gotti in federal prison after getting beaten up.
The jailhouse gates rumble down as a prison van carries John Gotti to a future behind bars. Prosecutors say don voyage, goodbye to John Gotti, who's headed now for the prison yard.
The Teflon is gone, the Don is covered with Velcro, and every charge in the indictment stuck.
The guy who did it was named Walter Johnson, and he was in his early 30s at the time he jumped on Gotti. He was a bank robber out of Philadelphia and was serving a 10-year sentence there in Marion Federal Prison with the Dapper Don. He was not a part of the DC Blacks, as some internet gossip says, because he was from Philadelphia. The Dapper Don was taken by surprise, aka sucker punched, and wasn't able to fight back, even if he could have, with the much younger Walter Johnson. But he didn't tell the guards what happened. He didn't debrief. He just said he fell or whatever nonsense excuse you say in jail when he went in a fight. Now, why did Johnson hit Gotti? Ended up, seems like a run-of-the-mill prison argument, and of course, beating up America's most famous gangster at the time was probably quite an ego boost for an inmate like Johnson, who was buried in Marion. Now, the way that Johnson's attack on Gotti came to public attention was actually from the 2002 Aryan Brotherhood federal indictment, where it was mentioned by prosecutors as part of the predicate acts that Gotti tried to hire, or perhaps did actually hire and give money to the AB, and they didn't follow through to kill Walter Johnson for his attack on Gotti. Some people say the AB was paid and they just kept the money, but while I was just now researching the family-affiliated Irish Mafia, Peckerwood gang up in California's East Bay, Contra Costa County area, I came across info from the 2020 California AB indictment, where federal prosecutors allege that California AB ringleader Ronnie Renegade Yandel was actually set to attack Walter Johnson in 1999, which was about 3 years after the attack on Gotti, but 3 years before Gotti died of cancer in 2002 at age 61. So maybe they were going to follow through. But Barry Mills, aka the Baron, probably the most powerful shot caller in the federal AB, told Ronnie Yandel to abort his mission at the last minute because he found out Yandel was set to parole from federal prison around that time, and the Baron thought he'd be more useful to the AB in the free world. But Yandel ended up getting convicted of a double murder in the East Bay about 2 years after his release. And he's been in California prison since the early 2000s, and he's facing another set of life terms now for ordering murders and selling meth and H from his California prison cell over the last 10 years. Renegade Yandel was transferred to New Folsom Prison in Sacramento. For the first time in the new millennium, he had a cellmate, relatively easy access to other inmates, and he managed to get something else, a contraband cell phone, and with that he had the ability to reach like-minded gangsters throughout the California prison system and on the outs. And what followed, according to federal prosecutors, was an attempted takeover of the state prison system's other predominantly white gangs, which resulted in one of the biggest gang crime takedowns in California history. The indictment explained how at least one defendant was a direct beneficiary of the settlement through cash, and how another defendant, Kevin McNamara, an Orange County lawyer, allegedly met with prisoners to deliver contraband under his attorney-client privilege. So nothing ended up happening to Walter Johnson for his attack on John Gotti. But Walter Johnson was apparently a guy with a hair-trigger temper and a propensity for heavy violence. He got paroled in May of 2001 from the Florence ADX. So apparently he had been bumped up from Marion to Florence ADX. I don't know if it was because of the Gotti attack, but within a few weeks of his release from Florence, he was in Washington, D.C. for some reason. Maybe he paroled there or he went up there to do something, I'm not sure. And he got into, let's just say, very serious trouble. In fact, he killed a D.C. transit police officer named Marlon Morales at the U Street Cardozo Metro Station in Northwest D.C. Johnson had apparently snuck into the D.C. subway, and someone called the transit police about it, just thinking he was a run-of-the-mill fare beater, but obviously he was much more serious criminal than that. And when Officer Morales got there, Johnson pulled out his gun, shot the transit officer, fled, and got away. Now, 4 days later, down in Philly, police pulled over an Oldsmobile with expired tags, and the driver was acting, according to them, hyper and babbling about having to bring some diapers home to his baby's mother, but there were no diapers in the car, and the car was on a possibly stolen list. So police pulled him out, started looking into who this guy was, and they determined him to be the federal parolee wanted for murking the DC transit cop. So while he was being held in the DC jail, one of America's most violent city jails, Walter Johnson actually got stabbed 40 times in the recreation area, and he was hospitalized in very serious condition for several days. No one was arrested or charged for stabbing Johnson, and authorities said they have no idea what led to the attack. Being the DC jail, though, you can bet your last dollar that neither the Italian Mafia nor the Aryan Brotherhood had anything to do with Walter Johnson getting stabbed. Saying that he killed a cop, though, I would bet that some DC inmate was sicked on him by the jail staff in exchange for a few jailhouse favors. Perhaps some Little Debbies or some extra time on the rec yard got Walter Johnson stabbed 40.
Yeah. And that's how it goes. A couple of bags of chips. That's what your life is worth behind those bars. Stabbed him up 40 times for some cupcakes or extra TV or something. I mean, it's crazy behind those bars. But yeah, he attacked John Gotti. He called it a sucker punch. He said he dope fiend. This is my guy Al Prophet right here. Check him out. But I mean, from my understanding, like I said, he hasn't said that here, but he was, paid. He was the one paid off, basically, Walter Johnson to attack John Gotti, because, as I said, John Gotti has stopped paying the Aryan Brotherhood for protection. They wanted to send him a message. That's the story that I was told. That he still needed their protection. So they sent the guy at him, to whoop on him so that he start back paying this stipend to the Aryan Brotherhood. I don't know what happened thereafter, whether he began to pay it again or not, but supposedly that was the reason for the attack. It was not a random attack or a racial attack or him trying to come at John Gotti, attack him, take him down for clout, because he's this big Mexican mafia boss and you're going to get all of this recognition if you beat him down in prison. It was more that he was a hired hand by people who wanted to send John Gotti a message that he had to continue to pay for their protection, from my understanding. But I could be wrong.
Times seems the most likely reason to me. Some of Johnson's stab wounds were deep, his lungs were punctured, and his blood was short of oxygen, so he almost died, but he did survive, and he eventually made it to trial for the crime against the DC Transit cop. During the jury selection process, one of the questions posed by prosecutors to prospective jurors inquired whether they had heard about an assault that Johnson had carried out on John Gotti. They didn't want to prejudice the jurors against him. In 2004, it was a couple-year process of the trial. He was found guilty of murdering the DC Transit officer. And then more recently, in 2011, his appeal in that case was denied. So it's been 25 years since Walter Johnson beat up the would-be boss of bosses, John Gotti, in Marion Penitentiary. Today, Johnson is back in the Florence ADX, and he's serving life no parole for his crimes.
On the secretly recorded audio tapes played at the trial, Gotti himself boasted that he was the boss of the Gambino crime family. Gotti himself bragged that he ordered several murders. The jury decided to take him at his word. It all started right here, a blood-soaked street on the east side where former Gambino godfather Paul Castellano was gunned down on Gotti's order in a brazen storm of gunfire in December of 1985.
John Gotti might have been the biggest predator on the streets, but maximum security prison is another world where people like Walter Johnson rule through violence. And that is today.
Wow. Yeah, so what? What the hell? Walter Johnson rules through violence. Really? John Gotti, the legendary boss, responsible for 1 million hits and shit. We know who the violent one was. But there you have it. John Gotti attacked in prison. As I said, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments or what y'all heard, why he was attacked or anyone that was there or whatever. But that's the story that I had heard. Obviously, I don't know. I wasn't there in New York or wherever it happened. I believe New York, I guess. But they said that the Aryan Brotherhood, as I said, looked out for Walter Johnson to attack John Gotti so that he would come back to them and continue paying his damn money, which he was apparently starting now to refuse to pay. Like, I ain't giving y'all nothing. I got this. And so, you got this? You'll put some knots on his head and show him that he ain't got this. But then Walter Johnson does end up stabbed up 40 times. Some of the wounds apparently rather deep. But according to my guy here, Al Prophet, it had nothing to do with that situation. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Crazy. John Gotti, the boss of all bosses. Stay safe and stay free, people.